مرحبا مرة أخرى. ندعوكم الآن للجلسة الأخيرة التي تحمل عنوان ما بين نعيم وجحيم الذكاء الاصطناعي، كيف نبني مستقبلاً أفضل.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now move on to the final session of the day. This session is titled Utopias and Dystopias, Crafting the Future We Want.
تستضيف الجلسة كل من ريال ميلر، مؤسس شركة إكسبيريادوكس الاستشارية.
The final session will feature Real Miller, founder of Experidocs Consultancy.
الدكتورة ريما دياب، المؤسسة والمديرة التنفيذية في منظمة المتجرة للتدريب وتكنولوجيا المعلومات.
Dr. Rima Diab, founder and CEO of the Galaxy for Technology.
الدكتورة سيلينا نيري، المديرة التنفيذية والمؤسسة المشاركة وعميد معهد الاستعداد للمستقبل.
Dr. Selina Neri, CEO, co-founder and Dean of the Institute for Future Readiness. Please welcome.
مونيكا بيلسكيتي، مستشرقة مستقبل ومؤسسة مستشرفة مستقبل ومؤسسة منصة Utopia Futures.
And last but not least, Monica Bielskite, futurist and founder of Protopia Future.
تدير هذه الجلسة أمينة يلماز بوتون، المؤسسة والمديرة التنفيذية لشركة Accelerate EMEA.
The session will be moderated by Amina Yilmaz, founder and CEO of Accelerate EMEA. Please welcome on stage, and the stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I know it's late and it's after lunch, but we have very important and futurists in our region on the stage. Please welcome my guests and speakers. One round of applause, please. So in the morning, we were talking about the utopias and dystopias, and Monica set the stage exactly what are the utopias and dystopias and where are arising from. So today, Monica, I would like to start with you because how dystopian fictions are connected with the techno-utopian propositions, where are the techno-solutions, methodologies that we need to debunk to address things in a more realistic manner? Would you please explain a little bit more?
Yeah. So I have very, very sort of first-person illustration of that. I started working in entertainment industry before I entered the world of technology. I was a world designer for science fiction projects as well as futurist consultant for different documentary future projects. And I saw, again, firsthand how future imaginations, and specifically technological imaginations, first depicted in a very visually appealing manner in cyberpunk dystopias within entertainment world that was supposed to be cautionary tales, that was supposed to bring our attention how to not do things, would end up directly on a VC pitch decks in Silicon Valley. So how come something that is supposed to be a cautionary tale then becomes a funding proposition to build technological tools or technological platforms relabeled as a techno-utopia? So again, these things aren't really polar opposites, just reverse sides of the same coin. I think what we need right now, especially from the people in the entertainment world, in the fiction world, is not anymore tell us how the world is going to end, but show us what kind of future we actually love to inhabit. And the fact that we are drowning in dystopian visions is not because people actually want more of that. That's a big misconception. Dystopias don't actually sell anymore. Dystopian movie projects, TV series projects have repeatedly financially failed. And I had an honor, an amazing opportunity to also do futurist consultancy on Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And this was one of the first examples, Black Panther series, of the kind of vision, maybe not exactly perfect, maybe not exactly realistic, I mean, it's Disney Marvel after all, but it pioneered some ideas of cities that would actually like to live in. Human relationship with technology that doesn't undermine our cultural traditions, that doesn't undermine our relationship with the world of plants and animals, that ended up starting to inspire a different vision, for example, of what real African future cities could be. So I think we need to prototype the worlds that we want to inhabit, not just with words, not just with manifestos, not just with technical descriptions, but also with visions that could inspire technologists and scientists alike, but also our populations to be the change that we want to see.
Thank you, Monica. So from here, I would like to turn to Riel because we have very important questions here. Whose interests are being served by exaggerating fears, like we can say Skynet narratives, or as you wish, and place very nicely on Frankenstein narratives?
Thank you very much. It's a wonderful honor and privilege to be on such a distinguished panel and to be in the presence of all the participants here at this summit. The issue of how stories are used. So the dystopias and utopias are stories. Recently I was in South Africa and I spent 3 days working with people who are teaching about the history of thought. And one of the things that we kind of identified was the way we think about time and the way we think about what lasts and what disappears. And there's a very powerful force related to reproducing the past, which is if we use the past as an image of the future, then it's really not surprising that we reproduce it, including many of the things that we criticize about the past. And so very often, and I think this is really true in many parts of the world, and it's not because I have an antagonism towards pyramids, but you will notice that pyramids get built in every continent for thousands of years. And when we build pyramids, we build something that sends a message to next generations about the past into the future. And I think that the glorification of what we already know and its transmission to the future becomes actually quite a burden and is very often in the interests of those telling that story. And I know that that in some ways can seem frightening, because if I'm going to think about the future and I'm not supposed to base it on the past, and if I'm not supposed to use success, the people who built the pyramids were very successful. If I'm not going to use that success to talk about the future, then how can I think about the future? But in fact, of course, we live in a world that we understand today is one which is continuously reinventing and changing and introducing novelty. And so being comfortable with uncertainty is actually the core challenge. Because if you want to believe in a world where things will be certain, then you're likely to be disappointed and upset when it doesn't turn out that way. So really the issue becomes, how do we go beyond those stories which serve the interests, for instance, in the hype cycle around artificial intelligence, where it really serves their interest to create this story of the monster, of the AI that escapes, of the monster we need to control, because that gives them a kind of grandiose podium to talk about something that's life-threatening, that's so immense and so big that everybody has to pay attention to me. And that's, of course, the way that they perpetuate their interest.
What are when you say, we look at the historical view of utopias and dystopias and where it's arising from and how we are really intent to grabbed by the utopian and dystopian ideas, but what is the real impact behind these hypes? For example, somebody says, machines will take over us, they will take the control, but other one says, machines will give us more time and work become optional, we don't have to work, there will be a universal income, and we will be living in the ultimate human life, we will be searching the true meaning of the life. So what do you see and how do you see? I'm curious to learn a little bit about what is the real impact behind these stories and narratives.
Look, I think that we're living at a very particular moment where the long history of uniform or dominant solutions, hierarchical solutions, and one-size-fits-all, particularly the industrial solution, which says this is the way the world must be. I think that we're encountering a message from our planet. And the planet has no ideology and it has no other agenda. The planet is just giving us a message. We can either listen or not. If we listen to that message, we realize that we are in fact alienated. We are in fact in an antagonistic position to the world around us. Not just to nature, but to each other. Because we can see the wars and the hate all around us. So for me, the fundamental question is, how do we become aware of where our hopes and our fears come from? And can we become more able to create our own idea of the future and not use somebody else's?
Exactly. So Monica, you have something to say, I guess.
Yes, I think that question of, is AI going to do this? Are robots going to take our jobs and replace us? It is such a cop-out. It's a distraction technique. Because what it does, it makes us think that somehow it is robots or AI that has these desires and this agency. But it is false. It is in fact those that are designing, wielding, benefiting from, and abusing the power obtained through the very powerful tools that robotics, AI, and other technological domains provide us. It is them. So if somebody is going to take our jobs away, it is people wielding those very powerful tools. If something is going to give us solutions, it is us humans demanding that we design and deploy the kind of technological tools that will be there to support us. So what's very important is to not get distracted and project the agency onto things that do not have agency, and acknowledge the agency that those that wield these tools have, and hold them accountable, and never give up into this cop-out of a discourse that, well, this is just what we are as humans. This is just how we've always been. This is just human nature. Well, whose nature that is? And does it have to be that way? And has it even historically been that way all the time? We have better examples and we have better stories, and so we should know and demand better.
Okay, thank you. So we set the stage with Dr. Riel and Monica, and I would like to go a little bit on the corporate AI adoption, because we are talking these days how we can adopt AI to become more efficient organizations and how we can do the cost cuttings and then be taking the lead of our industry, even our region, and become the #1 company. So Dr. Rima, you're working on this space a lot with your Galaxy for Technology company, which is a non-profit organization. But I would like to ask you, what strategies can an organization like Galaxy for Technology implement to foster inclusive AI adoption across various sectors, particularly underserved regions and countries?
Okay. Okay, first of all, thanks for having me today. And really a great pleasure with this great audience and panelists. It's a great question, actually, because I'm running an NGO called Galaxy. It's a non-profit organization to empower women and youth through technology. So we are following how to building capacity, first of all, for the next and the new generation for Jordanian and refugees in Jordan. So we started like how we can communicate with these kind of communities and youth, and they are the future of these skills, and we train them with the best practice of AI tools and AI skills, programming, IoT, blockchain techniques, and other things for AI. The first thing that we have found is that there is a huge gap between the education system and the market needs. So our mission was how to fill this kind of gap with the needed skills to be adopted with the market needs, and how to make this kind of generation to be built up with the best skills of AI and with the international standard. It's not like the national standard, no, it is the international standard. That's why we are very selective with our talents, and we make their assessment and post-assessment to make sure that they take the best practice of AI, then we can prepare them for the market needs for the future partners in Silicon Valley and the national world. So after these kind of things, we building the capacity, we found that there is a huge demand for preparing this generation with the skills for the future, and after that, how to make this kind of partner. So the second thing that we have done it is the partnership with main stakeholders who believe in Galaxy mission. So we partner with Google, we partner with Tesla, we partner with Alibaba, and other UNDP and other UN bodies that we are partnered with them. So this kind of partnership, it is demanding for us to give accreditation for our program and to enhance our skills for this kind of generation. And after that, when we done this kind of collaboration, we make it better for the next generation. The other thing that we have done for it, as you might know, Jordan hosts the highest percentage of Syrian refugees and other refugees. And we found that there is a huge gap for the people who coming from the elite school and the people coming from refugees school. So how we can empower these kind of communities with the best skills and the best practice for them to train them with AI tools. So the first thing that we done, it is like digital literacy for the camps. It is like محو الأمية الرقمية بالعربي. So when we make the digital literacy, we upgrade them after that with the needed skills for the future. So I do believe that everybody has to do that. We believe that AI has a good mission for a human, and our mission for Galaxy, it is how to bring this kind of kindness of AI to be built for a human.
Yeah, I will come back to that point a little later because refugee and social impact is very important. But I will back to Dr. Selina about the leadership, because when we are talking about AI leadership, AI adoptions, what kind of leadership skills that we need to have to manage these complexities of AI adoption in the organization, especially in the big, large matrix organizations, and how we can support young generations, Dr. Selina, because your expertise, I know, I listened to you many times. In the leadership skills, you have enormous and impactful vision. How do you see leadership impact on these uncertain times and changing and adopting the AI?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and thank you for inviting me, and thank you to my panelists. So first of all, I would like to say something. We live at a time of hype. Now, I wasn't around for the Industrial Revolution on 1700, but I was around in the 1980s when we were freaking out that internet becoming commercialized would take over the world, and we had the same hype, and I was working in America at the time. So I think the number one skill of a leader in this day and age is to see through the hype, to be able to understand that AI is still expensive, first of all. So as a business, if I want to implement AI, I have to be able to afford it. To be able to afford it, I need to be very, very clear with what are the use cases, what are the bits and bytes in my business where AI would make me either highly productive and more productive, or more precise, or offering services that are more personalized. So as a leader, I need to be able to have that vision, because if I go with the hype will take me, it's like a wave of the ocean, will take me anywhere they want to spin it. So I have to also look at the fact that we work with multiple generations in any workplace. And these multiple generations, and we are a good representation already on this panel, have embraced technology in their life in different ways and at different times. I am a Gen X, so I wasn't born with tech. I learned tech later in life. To my right, I think I probably have a millennial or a Gen Z. So these are people who are already spent more of their lives with tech. Now, why is this important? Because we have the older workers, meaning the generations after me, before me, concerned about the fact that their skill set is not necessarily going to be relevant. And we have the younger generations very excited about the skill set they are building and the time and place in which they are building them, but we have a gap in between. So we have to fill this gap. So coming back to leadership, leaders today do not feel very comfortable in managing the multi-generational workforce. At the end of the day, who is going to actually make the decisions about investing in AI, to what extent AI can change my business model or allow education around the world? These are people, us, human. So we have to have these skills. And the other bit that I think is very important, in the world of technology, and I dedicated 27 years of my life to the technology industry, so I have given to technology quite a lot. Let's remember that we are still very far away from being able to really fully understand the extent to which the power that we are creating. Developing tech means at the moment we are driving a big Ferrari going 1,000,000 miles an hour, and we are not very clear what's the destination and whether we like the destination. So my first quality of leaders is that they need to be able to slow down. Not slow down technological progress, but slow down so that as humans, as leaders, they can help others understand what is the journey and whether we are able at any point in time on this journey to define crafting the future we want. At the moment, if you ask me, I don't know what is the future that we want, but I know from so many organizations I work with, because my business is education and future readiness, that we want to remain relevant. We don't want to suffer mental health. We want to be healthy physically and mentally. We want to live in societies that are tolerant. We don't want more of the same job. We want better jobs. And we want to continuously learning. So if that is the makeup of where we are heading, then I need all the companies that are developing technology to go into that direction. And then we can talk later about the risks.
Exactly. Thank you very much. But here you opened the door for me to ask some questions to Riel, because Riel, we were talking about the Nokia. You know, the leadership. Nokia was once the biggest telecommunication mobile phone company. And it is disrupted by the smartphones and hype of the social media and increase. How do you see the leadership skills? Weren't they able to see this hype is coming and this disruptive impact of new technologies? Smartphones will be disrupting their industry. How do you see, how do you evaluate this?
Thank you. So I would share the slow down idea, but slowing down in the sense that you be able to reflect and also change your point of view. And this was, I think, one of the things that you see quite often in a number of different areas. It could be a university, it could be a company, it could be a city, where the myth persists that somebody will find the magic formula, and that somehow underneath a tree or underneath a bush there is the answer. And this version of leadership and choice is, to me, a recipe for not seeing the changes in the world around us. In other words, if you're waiting for somebody to deliver and this was often the case, and in the case of Nokia, I actually worked with some of the people. They said, the board of directors is of course very important. The CEO is very important. But you also have an entire company. And the ability of all of the people in your company to see different futures, to understand different futures, to see change in different ways is a crucial resource. And this is one of the issues, I think, in today's world, and it has to do with many of the things we're talking about. If only a few people imagine the future, if the future is the domain and the exclusive area for experts, technocrats, or grand visionaries, then we really are losing a fundamental resource for our whole society. Because let's remember, the grand visionary is only somebody we declare the grand visionary after it happened. And if you ask them what they were doing at the time that it happened, and they're honest, they'll say they did not know. But of course, we tell the story of the winner. We tell the story of the hero. But this democratization of futures thinking and the democratization as well of leadership, so that it can be throughout the organization, throughout the community, when somebody identifies something that's new, that's changing, that has potential. They might not know it will win, but it's an experiment. And the more we experiment, the better.
Thank you very much. So here, what I understand is literacy, that we need to familiar with the current state, what's going on in AI and machine learning, for example, Monica. It's very important, the information strategy, information literacy, let's put it that way. So in this perspective, the population scale and the age where machine learning tools are supercharging hybrid warfare, how this presents a risk, not just for a nation states, but for corporate entities and even for scientific research on your perspective?
I resonate with all the points that were mentioned. I always say that, it's not just about seeing where a particular technological future is going, but really, the most futuristic thing is not to imagine a car, but predict the traffic jam, all right? So to be able to see what could be the negative consequences is incredibly important. And to make our organizations, make our nation state resilient, we really, really have to focus not just on the intended use cases, but also the reverse side of it all. So it's true that for something like artificial intelligence to be really useful within a corporate setting, it has to be really good, it has to be worth the price. But, unfortunately, for some of the destructive use cases, AI doesn't have to be really good to be efficient. And most specifically, it is disinformation and hybrid warfare. With hybrid warfare, it's a little bit more complex, right? Because it's this intricate strategy of disinformation warfare, cyber warfare, economic warfare, and technologically supercharged kinetic warfare. But when we talk specifically about disinformation warfare, people were getting fooled to believe and to act against their very own best self-interests with very lo-fi Facebook posts. Now, when different nefarious organizations, groups with destructive intents in mind are getting to use machine learning tools to customize conspiracism, anti-science discourse, anti-human discourse in some cases, or anti-specific groups of people discourse in some cases, it doesn't actually have to be good to be efficient. So I got involved, over 12 years ago in this third wave of VR, the very beginnings of spatial computing. And back in the day, it was really hard. Like the first VR headsets were very heavy, very uncomfortable, very low latency, low poly, lo-fi, right? Not a great experience. And yet, when you would put it on a person and you'd make them experience something really scary, throw them off the rooftop, make a scary zombie chase them, some people would literally forget they were wearing a headset. And that experience was not good. Again, it was ugly, low latency, sometimes inducing nausea, and yet people would forget that they have a headset, they would fall down, start screaming, and sometimes incur physical trauma based on something that was absolutely virtual. So is it even virtual if it causes real physical impact? So this is something that we have to remember. It takes so much more effort to create positive use cases that are worth the price. However, what we need to do is not to jump just on these positive opportunities, but to be aware and to build resilience for the destructive use cases of this technology, and specifically the way that disinformation warfare is endangering not just nation states, not just populations and citizens at large, but sometimes undermining entire research domains, especially in biomedical field. There's so much paranoia and fear around specific biomedical research areas that are crucial for our long-term safety, for our long-term public health. Similarly, if our teams that span generations, that span cultural backgrounds within our companies.
Yeah, we have different
fall
cultural
into these
here.
conspiracy wormholes, fall into hating each other, fall into anti-science attitudes, it becomes very difficult to foster teamwork and to find common ground. So resiliency towards these negative use cases has to be at the top of our agenda, not an afterthought.
Okay, in this point, one question comes in my mind, because we are now here from different nationalities, different geographies, and we have carrying our cultural background and tradition as well. How do you see, in your perspective, can we create one unique ethical and regulations to regulate AI for global all, or should we regulate AI for different regions, different countries, and different dynamics, including social behaviors? We will talk with Ria a little later.
I'm always wary when people ask me for some kind of universal question that is supposed to provide answer across different cultural contexts, across different cultural domains, across disciplinary areas. And I always say that if there's one thing that generally leads to bad outcomes, is when we put ourselves on a pedestal and choose to design for. We say, I'm here, this person with expertise, I dropped in this particular community, usually marginalized community, and now I figured out and I got the answers for them. Generally, whenever we design for, not with, not in partnership, not in community, not in real communication, not only that we can perpetuate certain stereotypes and stigmas, it often simply results in bad product. So to design with, to ensure that we focus on the leadership of the most impacted, on the leadership of those that really viscerally understand the consequences of whatever is the thing that we choose to deploy, be it policy or built environment or new technological tool, is always a good way to start. But the answer, the solution, generally has to be contextual. And we have a lot to learn from each other.
Yeah.
And what's interesting for me is that we have this idea that somehow small Western cities, your Copenhagens and Oslos and Amsterdams, embody this idea around future of cities. But the truth is that these aren't the cities where the future is going to happen.
Yeah, I do like talking with you, really, futurists and artists together. You are so creative and really mind-provoking ideas you have. I would like to back to Riel for the regulations. We are seeing European Union countries regulating heavily, but US talking about now deregulations about the AI. How do you see and how do you consider this approach, these two approaches? Because I see you have role in head of foresight and feature at UNESCO. You are champion of feature literacy, and OECD career you have, and you are also researcher in the university's academia.
Thank you. I would kind of bounce it back to our other panelists.
Okay.
Because for me, one of the really crucial questions is what I would call, it's maybe a slightly technical term, but endogenous, meaning what I think in the context of regulation, of course, we all know that you're supposed to stop at a red light, okay? So it's an external constraint. And if you don't stop at a red light, you might get hit, but you also might get punished. So we have constraints that we impose externally. But it seems to me, particularly in the context of tools that give us power, the really crucial thing is not having the police on your shoulder, but rather having some idea of what makes sense in your head. And so I guess I wonder, from the point of view of leadership or corporate development or advising the adoption of new tools, of which AI is only one tool, there are many tools, for me, I have a sense that we are moving in a direction where it's considered important that people understand why they're doing something. That they're able to understand why this fits into what will make them healthier, what will contribute to their mental health, what will contribute to the well-being, to a society where people learn. So in this question of the balance between external regulation and internal capacity, if we come really back to the question, these are tools, and what matters is how humans use them, I think we have some very interesting, aspects here on the panel to talk about that.
Yeah.
If I could, just because it's intriguing me.
Thank you, Ria. So Selina, then I would like to turn back to you, because corporate perspective and leadership perspective, again, very important here for the business adopting AI, and what ethical and operational and strategic consideration will be crucial to balance profit motives with social and well-being and maintain trust among customers and stakeholders.
Well, first of all, I would like to just pick up 1 second on what Riel said, because I don't believe that we can wait for global regulation to do a miracle. Because as we know, we are a big world, and to get everybody on the same boat on regulation is always a challenge. I mean, look at the UAE, look at Singapore, look at many other countries. They craft their own regulation, and the principle is the following. Are we worried about privacy today? Forget AI. Yes, of course. We lost privacy many years ago, right? So it's not AI that is going to create an additional trouble in privacy. Governments are looking at privacy. There are regulations already in place. And the approach that I believe humbly should be the case is, I will protect the citizens' privacy and my residents' privacy regardless of where the attack is coming from. Whether it's coming from me gossiping in the pantry of the office, or it is coming from an algorithm that is coming into my life and to my data. So that's the first piece of wisdom, as we say. Concerning organization and actually getting AI implemented, I mean, I've worked on so many digital transformation projects and working on building skills for people to make sense of these projects, because at the end of the day, these projects will change how we go to market, how we manage our supply chain, how we recruit talent, how we promote talent, etc. I think it's important that we remember something. As humans, we need the capacity to understand what is happening around us, critical thinking, analytical thinking, big picture thinking, and what that means to the reality where I am today, to my skills, to my fears, to raising my family, to be able to have a well-paid and rewarding career. So this is a concept that is very human and not very much AI related, but it sits at the core of how we learn. Because this summit is knowledge summit. So what we are seeing is that we are changing the nature of knowledge, we are changing the origin of knowledge, and we are changing the distribution and the accessibility of knowledge. So coming back to businesses, I have to really be able to re-engineer the skill sets, the experience, the behaviors of the people that work in this organization for them to be the engine that will drive AI as opposed to being driven by AI. And this is the work of the education system, this is the work of governments, this is my work as a complement to the education system to ensure that we are driving and not being driven only by technological adoption, because people are scared. We are in a summit where we are all excited about AI, but when you talk every day to young talent, older talent, organizations, people look at one another and say, I don't know where we are going. I don't know where my place in it will be. And it starts by realizing that regardless of our age, we have to remain relevant, because skills around tech are just 1% of the human skills. So we have to couple, we have to marry the tech skills, the green skills, the empathy skills, the human skills, to then craft the future we want. We come back to the same theme of today's panel.
Amazing perspective. So here, reflection from Dr. Rima about the regulations on the corporate. Also, I would like to little bit, again, on the social good, because you are helping also refugees with your non-profit organizations. I would like to learn a little bit about that one and your reflections about regulations in the corporate world.
Actually, it is very important to highlight the regulation for AI, and it's very important, yeah. And we know that the transparency, the privacy, and everything like diversity, it's very important for our data. So what we are doing in Galaxy, it's how to make sure that our solutions, for example, for our LMS system or the learning management system that we use it for the refugees camps, it's called, having this kind of data and the privacy, we solve it. So what's very important that to highlight, it is statistic. So McKinsey report mentioned that 40% of the jobs will be automated by 2025. So how we can make sure that this kind of regulation is aligned with 2025, which is 2 months from now. So the other thing that we have to highlight it is as well the World Economic Forum mentioned that in the future jobs we need 97 million jobs that should be skilled by the youth and prepared from our generation. So this is very important for me to highlight how the regulation for AI, it's very important how to adapt this kind of regulation in my country. I don't want to see that gap between my country and, for example, the European Union and the other US and the 7 countries globe. So I do believe that the last year there was a huge summit for AI regulation, and it was very conservative for just for Y and Z people, and it was very selective. So we mentioned that where is the Arab countries from this kind of summit who's taking care about regulation for AI? So coming to Selena said that we started like Dubai or the Emirates started with their regulation. Saudi Arabia started with their regulation. In my country, we started with the regulation for AI. We don't want to just wait and left it behind with the regulation with AI. So we started to use AI for our perspective in our programming and on our programs that we have supported in the refugees camps. Just to highlight a small story that we use virtual reality for learning and for simulation. And one kid comes from me, for me, he's called Samer. Samer is 8 years old. And when he came and used this virtual reality for the first time in the refugees camp, I thought that this is the impact I want to see for the AI, how to use the tools of AI to empower the next generation with the skills they needed and to prepare them for the future jobs.
Thank you. So we need to wrap up. We are closing to finishing our panel discussions. If you have any questions, we would like to have in 3 minutes. But before wrap up, Dr. Rial, who is defining our future? AI tools or any innovative tools, or as a social being ourselves defining our future?
Thank you. I have to say that my position on this is that nobody defines those. And in this following sense, I want to say very clearly, in opposition to the position that we hear from Silicon Valley, but that we hear from many places, humans do not control the future. We do not create tomorrow. We are not that powerful. We are not that able to determine and decide. We need, I think, a much more humble perspective on how things emerge and how things unfold. I think that what we've heard today in the panel, it reinforces this point. Let me just end with a little example. On the island of Lesbos, when I was working at UNESCO 3 or 4 years back, we organized a futures literacy laboratory for orphans, age 8 to 15. On the island, they had lost their parents, they were refugees from Syria, and we spent a day with them in a mode of role-playing. We used theater to get them to work with their imagination, to work with their hopes and their fears. And what I'm trying to say here is that whether we're in a refugee camp or in an enterprise or we're thinking about Hollywood, one of the key questions here is, are we providing an opening for people to understand their own imagination, to understand where their fears and their hopes come from? Because that will allow us, I think, to be less frightened, less vulnerable to somebody saying, if you don't do this, it will be the end of the world. And that's not true.
Yeah.
But if we don't have our own imagination that allows us to respond to that, we end up being vulnerable and taken advantage of. So strengthening our imagination today, what I call futures literacy, is a fundamental shift in our relationship to the future, away from the idea that we can control and determine and colonize tomorrow, and much more into living and expressing and experiencing and enjoying the novelty of today.
Thank you very much. So last round of questions for everybody. How do you see, how do you define the future for yourself, where we are heading? In one sentence, if possible.
One sentence. So for me, it's a confluence of developmental opportunities and risks.
Opportunities and risks.
Absolutely.
Rima.
For me, it's in the impact of the good AI for better lives.
Okay. Tutorial.
The future is open.
Okay.
For me,
Thank you.
future is about life or not at all. At the end of the day, unless we figure out how our engineering, how our silicon, how our bits and bytes serve life, we will not survive. So
Thank
whatever
you.
we design, it has to be to enhance life and to make us more alive, not to think how we should replace ourselves.
Thank you. That's great. Do you have any questions, if somebody, to our guests? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We had really impactful. Do we have? Oh, sorry, please. I didn't see you. Microphone. I'll help. Thank you.
I will ask in Arabic. It's okay? I will ask in Arabic. If
Only
Sai will
one
translate
speaker,
it.
Dr. Rima, can talk Arabic.
Okay, because I'm very new here in Emirates. I'm journalist. My name is Reem Mahmoud. Why I will ask this question in Arabic? Because maybe I couldn't يعني أعبر عنه بالشكل الصحيح.
Okay.
We've been talking about the importance of AI to make the future feasible for everyone and make the dystopia or the fear from the future that we live in Syria, as it's a war zone, and we believe that those who own the future are the ones who have the knowledge. We think in Syria that war has taken other faces because those who have AI can direct things to their favor. Do you really believe that in AI we are away from its negative impacts and to decide the fate of nations? And my question to everyone, in Syria we don't have infrastructure or ability to have AI. As experts, do you think that in the near future we can have the possibility of democratizing knowledge.
You mentioned that about the danger of AI and just in I will answer in Arabic, it's okay. هلا هي بتحكي عن خطر الذكاء.
She was talking about the risks of AI, and certain companies or nations can control the future for their people. And in Syria, there is war and there is no infrastructure for AI. Yes, to answer you, yes, we've seen in the wars the use of drones in targeting leaders, political leaders, and even children. And we are here to talk about AI and the importance of putting clear regulations to be respected and not to have those bad influences to use AI negatively. Diversity in using AI and the data that feed the AI, if they are not biased, if they are biased information, then we will have biased results. There should be fairness, transparency in AI data. This is what we seek, and as experts, we are here to talk about these points, and I call for having a higher court for for AI, so that there would be more accountability in violators of AI, and we need such a higher court for AI crimes.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for this interesting conversation. I have a small question. I will keep it short. How do you envision the use of AI? How do you envision the use of AI for the context of business over next 10 or 20 years? And what do you think will the AI solve the biggest challenge that we have today for the next 10 to 20 years? Biggest challenge that we have today, from the biggest challenge that we have today, which problem do you think the AI can solve the most?
So who is your questions address?
Anyone can answer the question. My
Would
question,
you like to answer?
I think you got it.
Okay, real.
If the question is, what's the biggest threat of AI in the next 30 years?
No. I want to understand what is the biggest challenge that can be solved by using AI.
What can be the biggest problem that can be solved by AI? Well, yeah. I think I can find the answer. Wait 1 minute. I think it's right.
Sure.
I think it's right. Oh, I found it. It's right here. There is no way to know.
Yeah.
30 years from now, there's no way to know. That's not a question that actually has an answer. It's more an issue of how you think about the future. And you want to know which horse will win the race. But if you try to do that with something like AI, you're going to be very unhappy because you can't know.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Riel. Thank you very much. All my guests, please, one round of applause for everybody. And see you tomorrow.